you have to be grounded in who you are in order to not drink. I think a lot of people, the issue with alcohol is they get sucked in because of what you're just saying. The peer pressure, they want to, they don't want to look out of place or like they're not socializing. And so, there's a lot of pressure, external pressure that's kind of converging on people to drink, right? And I think unless you're really grounded in who you are, you can kind of resist that and then kind of level up.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today, we are officially in the last month of 2024. And I think we got like 25, 26 days left in 2024. I don't know how the holidays are already upon us, but I am pumped. We got a big holiday event, December 12th, black tie here in San Diego. So for any listeners, investors, anyone that's listening, that's coming out, excited for it and pumped to close out the year strong, but even more pumped for our guest today. I got a special guest. I got someone who specializes in ADHD and mental health. He is a naturopathic doctor. I got my man, Dr. Dan Sullivan. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Rich.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, man. I think it was Dr. Petty who was on not too long ago, a couple months ago. We had a great conversation, and I think it was Dr. Petty that connected us, man.
Yes. So we work together. We've been friends for a long time. We've been workout partners for years. And so, he's a phenomenal guy. And he was the one that connected us.
Love Petty. I'm a big fan of him. And fun fact, Petty and I believe it's his girlfriend or fiance will be at our holiday event, December 12th. You're going to be there.
I will be there.
And pumped for it. So anyways, that's it, man. So much to cover today. I got a lot of questions for you. But first question for you, man, I'm curious. What percentage of the American population has ADHD or ADD in your estimation?
There's some different numbers out there. It's less than 10%, but it's a fair amount of people. And
Really?
I think
It's that? I thought it would have been way more.
I think it is. I think those are the people that are actually diagnosed, but I think it's a lot more rampant than we realize.
Okay. I've never been diagnosed. I would bet I have probably ADD, but I want to get it from you because I don't know a whole lot about it. I've never been diagnosed, but I'm all over the place. ADHD or ADD? What is the difference between ADHD and ADD?
So ADD was an old diagnosis. It's basically the same thing where ADHD is now the term that's used. And so there's 3 different subtypes of ADHD. And so it sounds like you're talking about being a little bit all over the place. So there's the hyperactive type, there's an inattentive type, and then there's a combined type. So those are the 3 different types of ADHD. So I actually have ADHD, hence my passion for it. And I have the inattentive type. So that's more of your, kind of mind wandering, you're getting lost in your thoughts, just kind of lower levels of motivation, things like that, versus your hyperactive, which is going to be more all over the place, kind of tapping their feet all the time. Just really difficult to sit down in class.
And that's these are all under
Those are
ADD?
all under ADHD.
ADD. Oh, ADHD.
ADHD.
So what would you call it if I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm responding to an email or I'm doing a task and I'm like, hey, I got to go get something that's in my phone. And then I go in my phone and I get a notification on social media and then I got an email and then I click the email and then my mind goes somewhere else. And then like 2 minutes, 3 minutes later, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to be in my phone for. What would you call that?
I would not necessarily call that ADHD, right? I think that's, with social media, with all these notifications, our brains are getting hijacked by that. And it's very easy to get sidetracked. You get the notification, go into that rabbit hole and then forget why you even started looking at your phone in the first place. So I wouldn't necessarily call that ADHD. I would say people with ADHD are going to be much more prone to that type of behavior, where they're going to be less likely to kind of zero in on their goal, what they wanted to do. And so a lot of it is about actually, we were just talking about the Pomodoro technique earlier on the show. There's different techniques that we can use to kind of, put the blinders on, so to speak, to try to, mitigate those distractions that we're all, bombarded with these days.
Okay, so what is ADD?
ADD, so attention deficit disorder. So that was basically an old diagnosis for the same exact thing as ADHD.
Oh, that's just the old diagnosis versus the new one.
Exactly. So same thing.
So can you use them interchangeable?
People do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. You mentioned 10% have been diagnosed. I would imagine a lot of people have it to a certain degree that have not been diagnosed. I'm one of them. I'm like, I don't need to be diagnosed. I feel like if I do have it, I don't want to know I have it. And I feel like I don't use it as an excuse to not achieve my goals, to not focus on things that I'm into. But I also feel like, to a certain degree, if I'm struggling to stay focused on something, it's also likely that I'm just not interested in that subject matter.
Totally.
Like, I think back to when I was in middle school, elementary school, all these, history classes or biochemistry classes that I have zero interest in. History, I actually do have interest in. So let's just say biochemistry or algebra, which I don't really have a lot of interest in, and I'm falling asleep in those classes. It's to me, looking back, I used to think, oh my gosh, what's my problem? I'm not focused on this subject. But in all reality, looking back, it's like, well, I just didn't have any interest in that. And today, things that I'm not interested in, if I'm having a conversation with someone I'm not really that engaged in, it's just like, okay, well, it's just, to me, it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a spectrum to it, right? It's not so black and white. People want to say, "Oh, I either have ADHD," and I think and I see this all the time in patients that I see, right? There's, more very severe cases, right, where it's just very, inhibiting their quality of life, and then there's people on the other spectrum, someone like myself, where it's more mild to moderate, right, where you can kind of, do these strategies, lifestyle strategies, supplementation that we'll get into in a little bit to mitigate that, to kind of, push you along that spectrum into an area where you're able to function normally throughout the day. So with people with ADHD, yes, that is a characteristic where if something is not engaging, it's, forget about it, right? And I definitely resonate with that in school myself. And that's why I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs do have ADHD. And one of the superpowers of ADHD on the flip side is the ability of thinking outside of the box, not being kind of satisfied with the status quo and doing things differently. And there's a lot of people that are very successful with ADHD because of that.
Mm. Why do you think a lot of entrepreneurs have ADHD?
Well, I think it's the flip side. So I think those with ADHD are more likely to think outside of the box to then become an entrepreneur because they're not really satisfied with the 9 to 5s, just going to school, that kind of thing. They're not really thriving in that environment. So they need something different and they need that, more hands-on learning or that, just that entrepreneurial venture in order to, yeah, just, feel focused, feel motivated, feel inspired.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said there, and that makes a lot of sense. But at the same token, I've learned that, like, how to become successful in business or as an entrepreneur, a lot of it is doing the same thing over and over and over. And when you get bored of it, you do more of it, right? And identifying what you're not good at and identifying what you're good at and what's working, and doing more of what's working and doing more of what's working. And then when a bottleneck arises that doesn't allow you to continue doing more of what's working, you take all your energy and you go and remove that bottleneck, and then you go back to doing more of what's working. And, I think when we talk about ADHD and being distracted, I talk about it all the time. I call it shiny object syndrome, where if you're a creative as an entrepreneur, you get distracted by all these opportunities. And as we grow, there's more opportunities that are presented to ourselves. And so it can be hard to stay focused. But I know in order to win the game, you got to say no to all the distractions. Starting is about saying yes. Growing is about saying no. And so I think the ADHD component about becoming an entrepreneur is key, but I think you have to say no to all these distractions, which is
Sure.
probably the hard part.
100%. 100%.
So, question for you. I know you got a lot of really interesting topics and a lot of very viral videos on your Instagram account. I suggest all the followers to go check out my man Dan on Instagram at dr.dan.sullivan. But one of them is 3 drinks to avoid in ADHD. What are those 3 drinks to avoid in ADHD?
So number one, we were talking about before the show, is going to be alcohol, right? This is very detrimental to the brain. I feel like for anybody, with or without ADHD, honestly, inhibits the frontal lobe, which those with ADHD already have difficulties with. Number 2 would be over caffeinated drinks. So your energy drinks full of, 200 plus milligrams of caffeine, a lot of sugar in those. So those can be hyper stimulating. And then number 3, I would say any kind of very sugary drink. So your frappuccinos, even your fruit juices, right? Your apple juice, orange juice, things of that nature, and then obviously soda. So those you want to be really avoiding the high sugar drinks because of the disruptions in blood sugar that happen to the body, and then it really takes a hit to focus and motivation.
Mhm. Alcohol is definitely like I totally get that. For me personally, like this year, I did 76 days no drinking earlier this year. The first time I ever took a break from it. And it was a game changer, man. Like everything in my life was on the up and up,
What
whether it
did you
was,
notice with that?
oh my gosh. So I did 76 days earlier this year, and then I drank for like the summer, like a couple months during the summer, and now I'm on another stint, and I'm almost at 100 days. And so I have a lot of takeaways. I mean, I'm 39 years old. I've never took a break from drinking my entire life until age 39, and oh my gosh, so many takeaways. So one is there's not one bad thing that comes out of being sober. Not one bad thing that I can think of that comes from being sober. It's all positive. It's all wins. It's all positive things. And it's your fitness changes. You're more locked into the gym. Your fitness is the intensity of your workouts is better. You naturally wake up a lot earlier. You wake up with more ambition. You're always like the energy levels are through the roof.
Uh-huh.
Testosterone levels naturally go up
Sure.
as well.
Sure.
And that has something to do with your drive, your ambition. Your sex life is better.
Totally.
Energy is big. And then in addition to that, like your relationships are better. Your conversations are better. I always thought it's a limiting belief that like, oh, if I'm sober, I can't go out and go out to dinner or go out to a social event if I don't have a drink in my hand. And, I realized that I don't need to have a drink in my hand to go out and socialize and have fun. I literally just get like some soda water with lime. I never liked sparkling water, but I'm into Pellegrino now. And guess what? I go out now, have Pellegrino and lime, and I can socialize, have a great time. And those conversations are so much better now. They're so much deeper. I remember every single part of the night. I haven't had a hangover in almost 100 days.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool,
Well
right?
said. Yeah. Well said. I
And
love that.
so for me, it's been a game changer. And it's interesting because when I was not drinking for the first 76 days, everything was like this: business, fitness, like relationships. I became a better leader. And then when I drank for 2 months in July and August, which is like the best 2 months of the year to drink because we got like summer months, the weather's warm, you got concerts, you got events, you can be out in the water. There's a lot of cool things going on, and the sun goes down later. Those 2 months are probably the only 2 months that I actually would care to actually drink. But anyways, those 2 months, I'm like, everything's slowly dying. I went back to the no drinking, and now I'm at almost at 100 days, and everything's on the up and up again. And
Interesting.
so I believe, looking back now after these 2 stints, I think my biggest takeaway is that 99.9% of your daily problems can simply be solved by one thing, and that's eliminating alcohol from your life.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
It's powerful, dude.
I think what you just said speaks volume about your character. I feel like you have to be grounded in who you are in order to not drink. I think a lot of people, the issue with alcohol is they get sucked in because of what you're just saying. The peer pressure, they don't want to look out of place or like they're not socializing. And so, there's a lot of pressure, external pressure that's kind of converging on people to drink, right? And I think unless you're really grounded in who you are, you can kind of resist that and then kind of level up, like you were saying, because I completely agree. Health wise, from a health perspective, alcohol is just really detrimental, especially when, consumed on a regular basis. There's more and more research coming out about that, where even any amount, right, is not good for the body. And so, sleep quality declines, growth hormone declines, testosterone hormones take a plunge, as you mentioned. So there's so many negatives of that. And there's so many positives of avoiding it. So I rarely drink as well, maybe drink every couple months, something like that, because
You-
right on
you-
the same page.
Yeah, you know what? Like another big takeaway is like when I did the 76 days of no drinking, and then I went back to drinking for 2 months, and now I'm almost at 100 days. Those 2 months I went back to drinking in between, bro, it was crazy. My energy levels were like so low, and before all this, I just thought that was normal. I just thought that was normal way of life. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what it feels like to be sober, and like your energy is through the roof. Even if you have a night where you didn't quite get as much sleep as you normally would like to, you still feel great. You still feel amazing. And so when I went back to it, I was like, whoa, I really felt it. The energy levels drop. And I was like, dude, I don't like this anymore. So
Yeah, it's hard to go back there when you felt, when you felt 100% and then going back to 75% or whatever you're at, it's hard to step down. I think similar in business, or if we're, used to, nicer things, it's hard to go back, you know?
mhm. So I think my new thing, and I'm gonna keep this going. Initially, I was like, I'm gonna do it in 100 days. I'm gonna keep this going because it's just too good, and I'm just like I'm loving this new way of life. And so I think moving forward, I might only just drink during the summer, 4th of July to Labor Day. Those are the best 2 months of the year. I might just drink during those 2 months, be sober the other 10 months. I'll tell you what, January, February, there's no reason for me to come back and like enjoy drinks. Everyone's on New Year's resolutions. People are trying to save money. The weather's cold. I have no interest in drinking in those months anyway, so I'm gonna keep this thing going, and maybe I'll just drink 2 months out of the year,
I
you
like
know?
that plan.
And I'll say this, the last thing I'll say is this, Dan, is, for the people out there, if you're listening to this and you're like, "Hey, I'm just having a couple drinks at dinner, I'm just drinking, 2, 3 nights a week," I get it, but check it out. If you're just drinking moderately 2 to 3 times per week, that's 2 to 3 days the following day per week, 2 to 3 times per week the following day, the entire following day, where you're operating at 50% of your normal self. And so think about operating 50% of your normal capacity 2 to 3 times per week. That's half the entire week for an entire year. That compounded over months, over years, over multiple years is the difference between someone making it to the college basketball level and someone becoming Kobe Bryant, becoming Michael Jordan. If you relate this to entrepreneurship, to business, maybe you're a professional athlete, all that good stuff. And so if you think about that, and then in addition to that, I think about this too as I get older. Our days on this planet are very limited,
Mhm.
right? Average life expectancy for a male is 77 years. I'm 39. And so I always say months is the best way to measure how much time we have left. I have about 450 months left on this planet. That's going to go by like this. And so to think that I am going to waste those 450 months that I have remaining operating at 50% of my capacity because I want to go out and have a couple drinks, that is a little bit crazy to me. And so that's why, for me, it's made the decision a little bit easier. And the last thing I'll say is this. I think a lot of people struggle with giving it up. I think if you give it up for the right reasons and you give it up because you want to work on yourself, you want to work on self-growth, self-improvement, and you want to improve your life, you want to use it as a vehicle to level up your game, it becomes a lot easier to give it up. And you don't need to give it up forever. Just give it up for like certain seasons. That's it.
I love that mindset. I think that long-term perspective is key. And, like you're saying, just kind of zoom out and look at that. Like you're saying, half of your time is spent at 50% capacity. That's crazy, right? Especially with the compound effect, I think it's a similar approach, in health. And what I do is engaging that long-term view and that
Mm,
long-term perspective. And, what are the actions that we're doing day to day and what consequences will they have in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And like you said, the compound effect is massive. And so, it's a little change, just saying no, today. And, just the little things, they just add up. And like you said, we have a limited amount of time here. So why not live life to the fullest?
yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you there. Okay, so when we talk about those three things, you talk about alcohol, you talked about energy drinks. Is alcohol probably the worst one for the ADHD?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Just because people with ADHD also struggle massively with sleep too, getting to bed on time and also sleep quality. So alcohol really inhibits sleep, as you know. And so for that reason, and just the effects that are felt the next day and even multiple days after, depending on how many drinks you've had, I think that's probably the number one.
Yeah, sleep is big. I mean, if you think about it, just going out and having a couple drinks for dinner, your body's already like digesting and metabolizing the food, which is a lot on your body. But then you throw in a couple drinks, your heart rate goes way up because your body's like in overload. And so I never thought that was like healthy. But anyways, okay. So next one for you. This is a big one. I think a lot of folks struggle with this, or a lot of folks at least go through seasons where they struggle with this. Is anxiety. So, what is anxiety, and what are three things that folks listening to this can do to avoid anxiety attacks?
So anxiety is really fear of the future, things happening, bad things happening in the future. And so we're perceiving those or we're anticipating those things happening. And so that really ramps up our central nervous system, our fight or flight nervous system. And so people can really get stuck in that, right? And kind of loop in that thought process. And it also creates a loop in the brain. So there's a part of the brain called the amygdala that I know people are aware of. So that's the fear center. So that's more hyperactive, and so when that's active, that can actually inhibit the frontal lobe where we do our executive thinking or, executive functioning, higher level thinking. And so when that thing gets triggered, we can kind of bypass that whole pathway. And so I would say three things that people can do with anxiety is focus on the breath. So taking deep diaphragmatic breaths is a big thing. So people get caught breathing from the chest up, kind of have these short breaths. And so when we engage the whole diaphragm, we engage the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as the rest and digest. So that can really help us to tap out of that anxious state. I would say setting yourself up for success. So in the morning is a big opportunity. So one thing that people can do is avoid skipping breakfast. A lot of people will just get up, they'll have coffee, they'll skip breakfast. And those that are more prone to anxiety tend to not do as well doing the intermittent fasting type of a thing, which is very healthy for the right individual. And then I would say the third thing would be similarly in that morning routine, which I think is critical for anybody, would be to look at their phone immediately and get sucked into negativity, to social media, to the news, things like that, where it just spirals that, anxious thought pattern.
Yeah. I like what you said there, especially with the news, eliminating a lot of that. I think a lot of people watch the news before they go to bed. They watch it first thing when they wake up, and I'm like, dude, there's nothing good that comes out of the news, in my opinion, generally speaking, especially the local news. But I actually used to be addicted to Xanax when I was younger. This is when I was in college, and I never had anxiety before. I just took it for fun, and then I quickly became addicted, and that was really hard to come off of. I probably was on it for like 6 months, and then I weeded myself off of it, and I didn't know until after that like people have seizures when they come off of it. It was
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, but it was a rough
it's a
one to come
powerful
off of,
drug.
and I had never had anxiety before. And I think out of all the things I've experienced in my life, that was, from a physical standpoint, that was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I was young, but I think these natural remedies are 100% the way to go. When I look back at my experience with the Xanax, I'm like, I would never prescribe that. I would never suggest anyone take that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're kind of playing with fire, and not to, poo-poo any pharmaceuticals. I think there's a time and a place, right? Some people just are at a place where they need higher level intervention, but the way I practice medicine is really starting with the foundations and getting those things handled and then kind of building on that. So making sure the gut's functioning properly, right? Doing a full panel of blood work, seeing what nutrient deficiencies they might have, all this stuff that can be contributing massively to anxiety, right? And if you miss that stuff, if you never take a look under the hood and figure out what's going on, then you can miss a lot of those underlying things that can make anxiety a lot worse. And so then a lot of times people will get prescribed the medication. Think of that as a very high level intervention on a very unstable foundation. I know you're a big real estate guy. So, if you build on an unstable foundation, right, it's going to fall over inevitably. And so that's what happens a lot of the times is, patients will come in on X, Y, and Z medications, having never, unfortunately, gotten the education, to know what to do or what these natural therapeutics are, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, like when you say, hey, the foundation's broken and then we're going to come in and treat this, it's almost like a Band-Aid. And eventually, that Band-Aid's going to start to wear, and then you're going to have to like put on a new Band-Aid, and that's more Xanax, more prescription.
Exactly.
And I mean, I think there's a big thing, like big pharma, we'll just put it out there. I think big pharma has an alignment of interest for a lot of Americans to not be healthy, to not go to the gym, to not, work out, eat healthy, and make healthy diet decisions. I don't think they have an alignment of interest for that. But I think a lot of these natural remedies, working out, getting good sleep, going out and getting some vitamin D, some sunlight, being around positive minded people. I think mindset is big.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
one of the things that I think Andrew Tate says this, he says, love him or hate him, he says like, a lot of people say, I can't go to the gym because I'm depressed. And
Mhm.
it's like, no, you're depressed because you're not going to the gym,
Right.
and I think it's just a different way to frame it.
Yeah, the mindset piece is huge. And the more I do this, the more I see value in that. And, things like the family dynamic and, your perspective, who you hang out with has such a massive impact that, some people could only hang out with different people that are more healthy. And then,
Yeah.
the effects it just rubs off on them. And so, yeah, I think that's such a powerful perspective to have.
Hey guys, if you're looking to get into real estate investing, but you're like, hey, I don't have the time, but you want to participate in the passive income, the tax benefits, and the wealth building, my company, Summers Capital, partners with limited partners, people like yourself, and we go out and buy boutique hotels. We have a fund where we currently own 5 hotels, and we currently have a wait list for investors to participate with us. If you want to learn more to see if this is a fit for you, you can go to summerscapital.com/invest to inquire and get on our wait list and be notified next time we have an opportunity. Again, summerscapital.com/invest. Now back to the show. So to circle back, remind me one more time, the 3 things not to do if you have anxiety. What are those 3 things?
3 things not to do. Okay, so not to do would be to breathe very high up in the chest, so chest breathing, so not breathing from the diaphragm. Number 2 would be waking up, not consuming breakfast, so just going throughout your day in a fasted state, drinking coffee, caffeinating in the morning, but not consuming a healthy breakfast. And then number 3 would be looking at social media, the news, and other electronic devices right when you wake up and getting sucked in.
Yeah, and I love that. And with the social media stuff, this is one hack. I like to turn that stuff off, turn the phone off like 30 minutes, 45 minutes before I'm going to bed.
100%.
And then first thing in the morning, I don't get into the social media stuff because it is a huge distraction. And I like to wake up and just like get the day moving, like get those quick wins under my belt. So like the first thing I do is post to social media. I get a post out real quick.
Mhm.
I'm technically opening the app, but I'm not
Yeah.
scrolling. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, hey, let me get a post out real quick. And then I'm like, boom, getting ready to go to the gym. And then I'm off to the gym. And then before you know it, it's like, hey, like it's 8:00 and I already got a post out. I already got a workout in. And then now I'm feeling good and I'm ready to rock the day. I'm ready to attack the day. So for me, that's what works well for me.
100%. And one thing I want to add to that is that, when we talk about social media, it is just such a highly stimulating platform where we're scrolling through videos. Our brains are just not wired for that type of stimulation. And so that will just dump a ton of dopamine. And so when we do that, it's kind of like taking a drug, right? And so we get that high and then what comes after a high is a crash. And so then we're going to be way less motivated to go to the gym, to take care of business like we need to, right? So all those things. So I definitely notice that too. If I very rarely will get sucked in. If it does happen, I notice the entire rest of the day is affected by that.
Yeah. Another thing I'll say about, waking up, going to the gym and just really like, moving the needle. A lot of it is who your circle is. So, I'll give you an example. If you, have a partner at home, maybe it's your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and your spouse is not into fitness and they're like into sleeping in, well, then you're much less likely to wake up early and go attack the gym and get your fitness on point if your partner is not there, right? On the
100%.
flip side, you date someone that is into fitness or prioritizing that sort of stuff. Like right now, my girlfriend, she's not drinking either.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example. Like I was going to do 100 days and then come back and she's like, I'm going to keep this going.
Nice.
I'm like, okay, well, she's going to keep it going.
Yeah,
I
you're
got to
gonna
keep it going,
yeah.
right? And so that's an example where my partner is bringing the best out of me, right? And so I think a lot of it is who you're spending your time with. And you can correlate that to a lot of decisions that you make in life.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm very lucky. My girlfriend's also a naturopathic doctor, registered nutritionist.
Mhm.
And so,
Really?
yeah.
So you guys are always talking shop.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
guys nerd out together.
She does a lot of like women's health, women's hormones, which is a whole nother thing. And I'm doing more, ADHD, health optimization, men's health, that kind of stuff. But, yeah, to your point, we definitely I feel that as well. It's kind of this, you wanna be around people, whether that's your spouse, your partner, whether that's your friends, whether that's, you know, yeah, just who you spend most of your time with is bringing you up and causing is pulling you forward, is pulling you to grow, to expand.
Do you guys work out together and hike and all that sort of stuff?
We do, yeah. So she's been doing a little bit more Pilates and stuff, so I'm more into
Mm.
weightlifting,
Hmm. Where do you lift at?
jujitsu. So I was at Equinox a little while back, so I live up there in North County, so it's right there. And then I
And
do
jujitsu.
jujitsu at Gentle Arts in
That's a hell of a
Encinitas.
sport right there.
It is, I love it, yeah, and that, it's got a great group of guys, which is very I feel like on a different tangent for men, very important to be around other like-minded men that are, very positive, doing their thing, and yeah.
So, speaking of men's health, you mentioned this before we started recording. Like, it's important to look under the hood, especially after a certain age. I know personally, I just ordered a gene testing kit from like 10x Health, Gary Brecka, Grant
Nice.
Cardone, and I should be getting that in the mail anytime soon. But I'm gonna take this gene testing kit, and I believe it's just saliva, but it's gonna tell you all the gene breaks and that you have. It's gonna tell you. Well, you tell me what does this gene break test tell you?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of different tests out there, right? I tend to focus on the foundational tests first. So, which would be your testosterone, blood work, vitamin D, right? A CBC, your liver, all that kind of stuff first. The gene tests, yeah, they do definitely come into play. Testing for things like COMT or the gene that you might be familiar with, MTHFR is kind of the most common gene break. So there's a lot of different genes that can be that they call polymorphisms. There can be a different or a malfunction in the gene that can make it work either a lot slower or quicker than it's supposed to, and so that can lead to various different issues, detoxifying the body, producing neurotransmitters, all kinds of stuff, energy production. So it's good to keep those in mind. I would say, in my opinion, I would start with the foundations first. Like, it sounds like you're have a really good handle on, the diet, the lifestyle, getting around positive people, doing some blood work, and then that's sort of like the cherry on top is the genetic testing.
Got it. Will the genetic testing tell me what kind of foods I should be eating?
I believe so. Yeah, I'm not super in depth with the genetic testing at that level. Most of my patients that I work with, we're still doing foundations, we're doing blood work, we're getting there. But yes, there's been more and more advancements in the genetic testing in terms of, like you mentioned, the foods you can eat, the type of exercise that your body is well suited for, even the types of medications that your body might be metabolizing better than others. And so that can, I feel like that's sort of the next step in, psychiatry is tailoring medications to those who truly need them to a much finer level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Because I've always understood that like as like everyone has a different metabolism, body type, and some people are going to respond better than others to certain food groups. And I think understanding at a clear level, like based on your body type, based on your personal metabolism, what food groups are going to help you perform at the highest level in terms of energy, performance, brain power, like all that sort of stuff, memory. I think that would be good to know.
100%, 100%. One of the tests that I actually do a lot is, from a different perspective, is a food sensitivity test, where we're figuring out that's a blood test that we do very commonly at the office, where that will tell you there's hundreds of foods, whether your immune system is reacting to that food. So basically, if your immune system is reacting to a food, that's going to be generating inflammation, brain fog, different GI symptoms every time you consume that. And so a lot of people or a lot of patients I'll do that on, they are reacting to certain foods that are slowing them down.
Interesting, man. Very, very interesting. So, speaking of foods, what are some nutrient deficiencies around ADHD?
So the first one would be omega-3 fatty acids. So those found in fatty fish, especially like your smash fish, like sardines, anchovies, mackerel, herring, salmon, things like that. So those omega-3s, people in our day and age are just not getting enough of. We're very high in omega-6 fatty acids from, your processed foods, your fast food, your inflammatory seed oils, things of that nature. So people are very skewed in that way. So consuming too many omega-6s, which are more pro-inflammatory versus the omega-3s that are anti-inflammatory. The second one I would say would be magnesium. That's very, very commonly deficient in those with ADHD. That is deficient in our soil nowadays. We're just simply not getting enough in the foods that we consume, even if we are eating organic and local and all that stuff. Granted, it's going to be a lot higher amounts, but it's still one of the most common nutrient deficiencies in ADHD. And so I'll say this as well, those taking stimulant medications, which are the most commonly prescribed meds for ADHD, those rapidly deplete magnesium even further. So people are, already deficient in magnesium. They're taking stimulants, which then make the deficiency even worse. So it becomes a vicious cycle. And then the third one I would say, although there's a lot I could talk about, would be zinc. So zinc is also commonly deficient. People with ADHD are typically more deficient in that, and that has a huge influence on our ability to make dopamine in the brain. And so that's a very common one that I will supplement, test for and supplement, and people will do typically significantly better on that.
What exactly is dopamine and how is it produced?
So dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. So dopamine, we have all kinds of different neurotransmitters. People probably know dopamine, serotonin. We have all kinds of neurotransmitters. And so dopamine is more responsible for focus, motivation, and it's actually associated with the anticipation of a reward. So a lot of people associate dopamine with reward, but it's actually is released more in the brain when there's an anticipation of a reward. So, that's why it's very helpful to, set up, wins for yourself or celebrations for yourself after doing, all kinds of work throughout the day, have something to look forward to that can really pull you and help your brain to produce more dopamine.
Mm. And then is your dope like what kind of things drain your dopamine? Is like going out drinking alcohol or like doing drugs? Is that all drains it?
Yeah, so typically more what they call dopaminergic or dopamine activating drugs would be like your cocaine, your alcohol as well can drain it. And also social media, right? So when we're highly stimulated in that way, video games as well, that can really dump a lot of dopamine at once and then deplete our stores and can leave us feeling unmotivated and just lower energy, sluggish after that.
Now, on the flip side, if you're consuming like motivational, inspirational social media content that you can utilize to level up your game, would that work in reverse and actually help your dopamine level?
Yeah, yeah, I think there's definitely nuance here. It's not all social media is bad or anything like that. It is, yeah, it's basically when you get sucked in and are just mindlessly scrolling, that's when, you're just tanking your dopamine. But if you're conscious while you're doing that, you're there to learn, you're focused in on one thing, whether it's like a podcast, long form stuff, or even, if you're just zoned in on that one thing and you're fully conscious doing that, that's a totally different story. And there's so much good stuff, online these days that is motivational, that is inspirational. So yeah, definitely some nuance there.
Yeah, I would say for me, happiness stems from growth and progress. And so the more I'm growing, the more I'm progressing, whether it's, at the gym, fitness, or at a business perspective, or maybe with my personal life, the more I'm growing and progressing, generally speaking, the happier I am, but it's probably also building my dopamine, right?
100%.
Yeah, that
100%.
that all makes sense now. Okay, so I've heard that protein is important for those that have ADHD. Why is that?
Protein is critical for those with ADHD. So, protein contains the amino acid L-tyrosine, which is a building block of dopamine, right? So, it's kind of the raw material for making dopamine. So, we really need adequate amounts of protein, and we would ideally need that evenly timed throughout the day, right? So, not missing meals throughout the day. Um, Protein also really helps to stabilize blood sugar. which is essential for, focus, motivation, proper energy levels, all that kind of stuff. Protein really helps to stabilize blood sugar. So instead of, consuming a soda or that frappuccino and we're getting these huge spikes and troughs in our blood sugar levels, protein really helps to stabilize that whole curve. And then I would also say protein really helps to increase our satiety or our level of fullness. And so we're a lot less likely, especially those with ADHD, have that more propensity of reaching for unhealthy options if they're in a pinch, if they're feeling hypoglycemic. And so when you're feeling a little bit more full, more stable, more grounded, you're less likely to reach for those quick and easy options for food.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know too much about the back end stuff that you just alluded to, but like I know for me personally, like I know when I eat a higher protein diet, I find that I can eat more and my body will still shred fat, which I kind of like. So, anyhow, okay. So next up, what are some foods that you should be consuming and some foods that you should avoid?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I would say the foods to consume in ADHD or those in general would be those fatty fish and especially the smaller fish. So the smash fish, the sardines, the anchovies, the mackerel. I know some of these are acquired tastes. I used to hate sardines, but now I love them. So those are going to be fantastic. I would say organic blueberries, so low sugar fruits are going to be great. Very high in antioxidants, proanthocyanidins, which are great, excellent for the brain. And then your green leafy vegetables as well, right? So just back to the basics, getting enough fiber in there, which also really helps to stabilize blood sugar and energy, helps with the function of the gut, which the gut is imperative for mental health, ADHD, just functioning at your best because of the gut brain connection. So that's a big one. And then foods to avoid is going to be, your processed foods, right? Your high carbohydrate, simple carbohydrate, your bagels, your crackers, your, toast, your things like that, where you're just, and especially just consuming those on their own. I would say any kind of sugary drinks as well. So your even fruit juices, you're eliminating all that good fiber from that fruit. And then I would say other foods to avoid would be your lower quality meats. So your factory farm meats, they're going to be, laden with, unfortunately, hormones, just a lot more of the omega-6 fatty acids than the omega-3s that you want, and something more like a grass-fed beef, the organic chicken, poultry, things like that, or even your venison, game meats.
Got it. I want to switch gears here and talk a little bit about sleep schedule and what creates a good environment for healthy sleep, non-healthy sleep. So I guess to start, like I know for me, a lot of just like good sleep is just me waking up early and getting a good workout in, staying busy, staying active throughout the day. I might get a second workout in the evening, go do like a hike or something like that. And I'm so busy that by the time I get to like 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, especially, I'm just like out. And so I always say like, man, if you're like struggling to go to bed early, well, it's like, well, how do you go to bed early? Just force yourself to wake up early the next day. You might be tired, and get a full day in, stay active, keep your schedule busy, get a workout in. And by the time 9 o'clock hits, you're going to be naturally exhausted. So talk a little bit about what creates the best sleep environment. Is it more so what you did the prior 18 hours, or is it more so
Mhm.
just having the right ambiance?
I think they both matter a lot. I think people more focus on, the nighttime routine as the most important thing. But as you alluded to earlier, one of the most important things you can do is waking up early that day and then getting sun exposure soon after waking up to really lock in your circadian rhythm, your 24-hour biological clock. So if you do that, you get a natural surge of cortisol in the morning, and then pairing that with exercise can be very helpful as well. So waking up early, getting outside, getting some sun, getting the body moving. And so that can really set the circadian rhythm to make you more tired at a reasonable hour that night. And so we want to have high light exposure in the morning, exercise, getting the endorphins going, getting the blood flow. And then on the flip side, when we go to bed, some of the biggest culprits of inhibiting people's sleep are going to be that blue light from the phone, from the TV, from the electronics. And so we can either wear some blue blocking glasses, which I recommend a lot because a lot of people just refuse to stop doing that stuff. So that's one way to mitigate that. Or even better yet would be to avoid that stuff entirely, at least an hour leading up to bedtime. And using, the bed for sleep only, right? Just really having a place where you only sleep, you only, are intimate and otherwise taking electronics to bed, things of that nature kind of tricks your mind. And so also blackouts are very, very important for sleep.
I agree with you there, man. I know for me, what works really well is I gotta sleep cold. So I actually personally set the AC at the thermostat at 62.
Nice.
I
That's
got the fan going.
okay.
But I gotta say, the thermostat is in the living room. My bedroom always sits about 4 degrees warmer because it just doesn't have the same ventilation. So it might be 62 at the thermostat in the living room, but in my bedroom, it might be sitting at like 66. Gotta have the fan on, gotta have some cold air, and then I gotta have some sort of sleep noise. So
Hmm.
I use the app Calm, and I have it's called what is it called? It's called Distant Ocean Surf is my favorite one. It's just like these ocean waves crashing, and that works really well. And I go to bed relatively early for most of the week, and so I'm getting up anyways. Like today, I get up and it's still dark outside,
Uh-huh.
so I don't need to put the blinds down. And so I kind of like that actually, because if I'm like, oh, sleeping in a little bit, the sun's starting to come up. I'm like, oh, I got to get out of bed. But anyhow, that's what works well for me. If I go sleep in a hotel room or I'm on the road, I still put that app on just on my phone, and it just that white noise. It helps me sleep good.
Yeah. Yeah, that mental that kinda trigger too. It's like, "Oh, it's time to sleep now. I got this trigger, I have these routines in place." And those things, all those things can really help, get you to sleep faster. There's supplements out there as well, like magnesium can be a very helpful one before bed to kinda help you wind down, get more quality sleep. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's all good stuff. Okay, so a lot of people might struggle with waking up middle of the night, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're waking up in the middle of the night and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't go back to bed." I've been there before in the past, especially when I used to work shift work. I used to work shift work as an air traffic controller for the FAA, so we'd be all over the place. My sleep schedule would be all screwed up, and so sometimes I would wake up at 3 in the morning and I'd be like, "Oh man, please be 6 a.m." But it's 3 in the morning. I'm wide
Wide
awake.
awake. Yeah.
So that's a real thing. What are some things that someone could do to avoid that?
Yeah, so I think, that 2 things that come to mind with anytime I hear, waking up wired,
Yeah,
between 2 to 3, roughly in that area, 1 to 3, depending on when you go to bed.
yeah. What does that mean?
And so, basically, it means that your body is producing a lot of cortisol in the middle of the night for some reason. So, there's typically 1 of 2 reasons for that. Number 1 is just simply higher levels of stress throughout the day. I'll even notice it too if I'm especially stressed that week, I'll find myself waking up at that time. And so really our body is dysregulated, our hormones and our cortisol is dysregulated. And the other thing is going to be blood sugar imbalance. So if we're, eating that poor diet, having those sugary foods that I mentioned earlier, right? We're not balancing our blood sugar. We're not able to be what's called metabolically flexible, where our body's able to seamlessly shift from burning carbs to burning fat as fuel. And so in the middle of the night, obviously you're not eating. And so blood sugar will drop. And if it drops too much, the body will produce cortisol in order to bring blood sugar levels back up again. And so if you're dysregulated, it will typically overcompensate, bring cortisol will spike, and that's what wakes you up, right? In the morning, it should be spiking. But if it's spiking in the middle of the night, it means that you're either typically stressed or blood sugar is dysregulated. So depending on what's going on, it could be stress management, it could be some meditation, really, having a longer term view of your life, what's going on, and what is stressing you out, what's making you unhappy, right? So figuring that stuff out and taking action to alleviate those things, or from a dietary perspective, balancing blood sugar, eating protein with each meal, really regulating that. And then sometimes eating a little bit before bed, eating a little bit of protein, something
Really,
like a
eating
hand.
before bed?
Yeah,
Because
so
most folks say like, hey, don't eat for like 2, 3 hours before you go to sleep. But you're saying you should eat a little bit before.
so for most people that don't have that dysregulation, don't eat before bed. I would agree with that, right? You need to fast for a couple hours before bed to get that growth hormone release. So only for people that are really struggling with waking up at that time, you can do that as kind of a band-aid solution where you have a little bit of, like sliced turkey, a little bit of nuts, something like that to just help the blood sugar stabilize as you become more healthy.
Mm. Okay. So that's pretty good. So that's the best way to avoid it is just have a little something to eat.
I would say so. There's definitely some supplements too that can be helpful. One of my favorites is kind of a mouthful. It's called phosphatidylserine, and that can really help to balance and mitigate the cortisol spikes. It can help to keep cortisol levels more stable. And ashwagandha is another one that can help to reduce cortisol at night.
What does that do? Ashwagandha?
Ashwagandha, so that's a
Sounds like an exotic drug or something.
something like that. It is a Ayurvedic herb,
Okay.
so that's very helpful for, adrenal health, thyroid function, and that helps to bring down cortisol levels and helps to stabilize them.
Mm.
Yeah.
Cortisol levels. Break down for me real quick. What exactly is cortisol levels?
So cortisol is our body's stress hormone. So we produce that from the adrenal glands, which sit on top of our kidneys and our back. And so those are going to be firing anytime there's, like I said, if we're hypoglycemic, if we're, our blood sugar dips too low, our body produces cortisol to respond to that, to bring up blood sugar. And then, obviously we produce cortisol in times of stress, right? When we're stressed out at work throughout the day, our body pumps out cortisol in order to basically fuel the body and engage that fight or flight nervous system.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. Okay, so 3 things that you would never do in the morning. I know that you got some content around this on your social media. What are 3 things that you would never do waking up first thing in the morning?
I would never look at social media, look at my phone first thing in the morning, get sucked into that. I would never start working immediately either. I think I personally like to spend that time. I like to do a meditation first, kind of, just ground into who I am, what I'm about before I start to work. And then I would also never consume some of those higher sugar foods that we talked about earlier, right? Like a piece of toast, a bagel without any protein, or some juice, things like that, to really start the day on the wrong foot of blood sugar and motivation and drive.
How important is it to properly hydrate yourself with water and salt first thing in the morning?
Critical. So that can also help the adrenals as well, which are, again, responsible for producing cortisol. So if we're under a lot of stress, we're going to need a little bit more salt. So that's a good time to do it in the morning to kind of ease the burden on the adrenals. And so a little bit of sea salt, a little bit of, Himalayan sea salt, little lime, water. A lot of people will go right to the coffee, which is dehydrating. And so they're never really, they're going 8 hours without any water, and then they're drinking something that's caffeinated, which is going to be dehydrating. And so, yeah, they're already kind of starting to get the day under the gun. And so, yeah, starting a day with some water, a little bit of salt in there, really good idea.
I used to not drink a ton of water first thing in the morning, and I would just like literally just grab coffee, go straight to work type of thing, and get after it. And over the last several years, I've gotten in the habit of drinking about 32 ounces of water. I drink it first thing in the morning with some sort of salt. Right now, I use the Liquid IV sugar-free packs, the lemon lime one. It tastes very good. I know there's probably healthier ones out there. I'm open to trying those. But since I've gotten used to this, I will literally consume 32 ounces while I'm working out at the gym of water with a little bit of salt and some electrolytes. And then I go and start my day. Then I go have my cup of coffee and I go to the office and I feel so good. And on the days that I feel tired now, it's usually as I look back, I'm like, oh, I didn't drink all my water this morning. I didn't go to the gym this morning, and so I didn't drink the 32 ounces. Maybe I just had a little bit of water, and I'll notice the effect throughout the day. It's a massive difference.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Yeah, I would I would add to that too. I totally agree. And I think it's a lot easier to drink water when there's some electrolytes in there. And it's easier for our cells to become hydrated as well versus just chugging a bunch of straight water. I would also say with your point on the caffeine, how you're saying you're drinking your electrolyte water, getting a workout, and then you caffeinate, have the coffee. That's a big thing in terms of cortisol that they've done. There's been a lot of recent research on that
What do you
where
mean?
if you think about it, so if you wake up first thing in the morning, your cortisol levels are already at their highest because that's what helps you to wake up in the morning. If you then drink coffee, that's going to further increase cortisol. So you got a big surge of cortisol in the morning, and that leads to then a crash that you're going to typically feel later in the day. Versus you wake up, you have that normal surge of cortisol, you have your water, you have your workout, and then you caffeinate, and it's sort of a much more of a gradual cortisol spike, you could say, instead of that big one and then a crash.
Okay, so walk me through this. Right now, I'll wake up, I'll tell you this morning. This morning, I'm up at 5:45. I fill up a 32-ounce, jug of water, throw some electrolytes in there, throw some salt in there, liquid IV, sugar-free. I'm off to the gym. By the time I get home from the gym, I'm finished with my water. I have a protein shake, and then, freshen up, shower, get changed. I go to the office. On the way to the office, I go and pick up my Starbucks, and I get to the office and I'll sip Starbucks. And so, I'm probably in between finishing the water and then my coffee, maybe like 45 minutes to an hour. How long should I ideally space this out if I want to have more of a balanced cortisol level throughout the day?
Yeah, I would say anywhere between an hour to 2 hours, right
Okay,
after waking up to have your caffeine.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's a good window. I like that routine, getting up with the water, having the workout, getting outside, getting that
Yeah.
sun, and then kind of slowly easing into the caffeine.
'Cause I got to be honest, man. Like I feel great right now. I'm just like I'm jacked right now, and I'm like just yeah,
Locked
I
in.
feel good. I'm like I should probably go get my T levels tested. I it's funny. I was like I wanted to get tested. I never got my testosterone levels tested, and this is actually literally is just like 3 weeks after stopping drinking the second time. And I got tested, and I was at I think 579, something like that. And so I want to get retested. This is natural. I want to get retested now that it's been almost 100 days because I noticed my energy is just going through the roof. So I want to get tested again. So, if I'm like 700 natural, I'm like, I don't think I need to get on testosterone at this point. So I'm gonna likely wait. I feel great, right? And so, why get on it? And then my body's gonna stop producing it naturally. I know that's always a card that I can pull out of my back pocket later in life. But for right now, I think I'm gonna take a break from it. But I say all this and that. Yeah, man. If I get good night's sleep, 7 hours plus, I wake up, I do my 32 ounces of water throughout my workout, get like nice lift in, shower, get my coffee, get in the office. I'm feeling great, man. I'm
That's
ready to rock,
that's a
dude.
recipe for success right there.
Yeah, yeah. But I think also a lot of the energy is like just because I'm so excited with everything that I'm doing and building. And I always say like one of the best life hacks is like go build something cool. Go build something cool with cool people that you like being around, that get you excited to get out of bed and go attack the day. I mean, I was working a 11-year career as an air traffic controller before I got into entrepreneurship, before I got into real estate investing, and I didn't get as excited to get up and go to work back then. I just didn't. But now that I'm like building my own stuff, I'm like, man, I get hyped in the morning.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that can make a world of a difference.
big
Yeah,
big game changer.
yeah.
And that probably affects your cortisol levels and
Oh
testosterone
yeah.
itself, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the more I do this, the more weight I put on people's lifestyle, getting outside of just the diet, the supplements, the medications, that kind of world, which is obviously very important. But I think I'm having more and more respect for people we're around. Do we like what we're doing? Do we love what we're doing, each day? Are we excited about it? That stuff, it has far reaching effects on our physiology that I think we're learning more and more about these days. But yeah, such an important point to be stoked, to be excited for what you're doing every day.
Yeah. What's the biggest mistake that you see your patients or just everyday people out there making when it comes to mental health and just living a overall healthy lifestyle?
It's a good question. I think the biggest mistake that people make in terms of the things that you mentioned is not having that long-term perspective, is
Mm,
not being able to see outside of their current environment, their current setup. Um, and I think that people can get stuck in that. And whether that's the choices that they're making every day, right? Whether they're drinking every day, whether it's, just, maybe not waking up, maybe not getting after the day. I think getting stuck in that mentality of that short term perspective, that instant gratification, and I think that one of the biggest things that people can do to, upgrade their mental health, their happiness is having that longer term view, having a vision, having a mission for their lives, and having that such a strong mission and vision for your life pull you forward and excite you. So I think that can be a really, really, really important thing, kind of, bigger picture for people. But I think that's one of the most important things for mental health.
mm. I can definitely resonate with all of that, just with kind of my journey and, the ups and downs that I've experienced over the last, 5, 10, 15 years, but really the last few years. And so I think for me, like I said earlier at the top of the show, happiness stems from growth and progress. And so I think finding that passion, finding that thing that excites you to get out of bed is so important, man. And I think it makes a lot of other things that we do become easy because you're working towards that goal every single day. You're moving the ball down the field every single day. I think it's so important, man.
How did you just a quick question for
Yeah.
you. How did you transition from that career into having the vision? I know you're big into real estate. You walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, man. I was 11-year air traffic controller for the FAA. Loved the career, but I just got to a point where I felt stuck. I didn't feel like I was growing. I was like, man, there's got to be more out of life than this. And right around that time, I overheard a coworker in the break room talking about how he just closed on a fourplex in Cleveland, and I was like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, how did you do that? And so he was like, hey, go read this book and go check out this podcast. And I read the book and I was like, what else can I do? And I just started like consuming this podcast. He was like, go check out this book. And I started reading. I started listening to podcasts on real estate investing. And I just became obsessed. I was like, whoa, I didn't know anything about business or real estate at the time. And it's just like this light bulb moment.
Huh.
And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole new world out
I
there
love
that I
that.
didn't know about. I just became obsessed. And long story short, I cashed out my 401k. That was the only seed money that I had at the time. Bought a couple small apartment deals, 11 unit building in Cincinnati that I bought for $350,000 that I still own today. And then I bought this other deal with that same dude and this other guy that I worked with. The three of us all cashed out our 401ks. We partnered on a 32 unit multifamily apartment deal in Indianapolis. And we like 3x the value of that thing in a relatively short amount of time. Sold it. That was kind of my first big win in the real estate investing space. But anyhow, after I bought those two deals, I was broke. And I like started a podcast. This is my old podcast at the time called The Multifamily Takeoff. It's now called The Real Estate Investing. I'm sorry, The Real Estate Takeoff. My two old partners still have it. And anyhow, I learned how to raise money. I got some good mentorship and learned how to take down a little bit bigger deals and started getting investors and one thing led to another. And then, ended up leaving that career and going full time. And when I left and went full time, there was a big level up. And
Yeah.
then when I decided to break up with my old partners and go on my own, there was a lot of growth that happened after that as well. And so I think every time that I've decided to have the tough conversation, because I felt like it was kind of a constraint, you remove the constraint, there's always been a breakthrough moment. And so, I challenge anyone listening to this right now that if you currently are operating with some constraints in your life and you don't feel like you are going to be able to achieve your full potential under the dynamic, I challenge you to have that tough conversation and remove that constraint from your life, because you're going to start to see a lot more success once you do that.
Mm.
And quite frankly, I think a lot of those other folks with whatever you might be dealing with, they're going to win too. So like my old partners, they're better off without me too, right? And so, it's a win-win. And quite frankly, I'm still friends with these guys. We still own real estate together. We're just not buying deals anymore, and
Mhm.
that's totally fine.
I love that
Yeah,
story.
yeah. So anyways, Dr. Dan Sullivan, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Big fan of everything you're doing. I'm excited to connect with you and Petty at our holiday event, where can the folks get in touch with you if they want to learn more, all that good stuff?
For sure. So on my Instagram, dr.dansullivan, and then on our company site, so oasishealthandmedicine.com.
I love it. Dr. Dan Sullivan, thank you for coming on. I'm Rich Summers. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.